When you hear the word astrology today, I bet you instantly think of, newspaper horoscopes or internet memes, right? But what if I told you that the earliest astrological texts weren't about fortune-telling at all? They were actually the world's very first big data models. Seriously, today we're going to look at how ancient civilizations built massive, incredibly complex, and highly mathematical frameworks to map space, time, and human psychology. We are literally looking at the original cosmic algorithms.
To really grasp how rigorous this historical mapping was, we just have to look at the words of the father of modern physics himself. Even Sir Isaac Newton recognized the rigorous mathematical origins of mapping the cosmos. He noted that early Egyptians and Chaldeans didn't just look up at the stars and make up stories. They were calculating the exact length of the solar year and fixing the solstices for navigation and agriculture. They were systematically recording data. They were observing the absolute physical realities of planetary motion, trying to find precise patterns that correlated with events right here on Earth.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what we're talking about. Early Greeks, like the Pythagorean philosopher Philolaus and later Ptolemy, didn't just casually observe the sky. They mapped these celestial observations into intense geometric algorithms. They took the 360-degree circle of the zodiac and divided it into perfectly precise segments to measure exact equinoctial periods. It's like they were building a giant, visual, mathematical map of space and time to track the physical environment around them.
So, to bring some kind of order to this massive cosmos, Ptolemy categorized the seasons strictly by their physical, atmospheric qualities. According to his quadrants of the year, spring is all about expanding moisture after the cold finally dissipates. Summer hits peak heat because of the sun's zenith. Autumn gets dry because that recent summer heat has totally absorbed the moisture, and winter is, cold. This is an entirely physical, thermodynamic observation of the environment. It's basically classical climate theory built on heat, cold, moisture, and dryness.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the massive conceptual leap Ptolemy takes next. He takes those macro, physical, atmospheric observations and applies them directly to the micro level, to human psychological temperament. He argued that if the stars and seasons can dictate the moisture and heat of the Earth, they absolutely dictate the constitution of a human being born into that specific environment. So the heat and moisture of spring translates directly into a person with a liberal soul and specific physical traits. He was basically arguing that our neural and psychological baseline is literally shaped by the atmospheric geometry at the exact moment we're born.
Well, while the Greeks were hyper-focused on seasons and geometry, let's shift gears and look at India for a second, where they were developing something incredibly granular. In the Vedic system, specifically the text Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra, they weren't just using broad seasonal qualities. They developed a highly quantified mathematical grid for human destiny. They used a concept called Virupas. This is literally a mathematical point system designed to precisely measure the strength and influence of a planet down to the exact degree and minute of its position.
To put that into perspective, taking data straight from those ancient Vedic tables, you can literally see the precision. At exactly 176 degrees and 30 minutes, a planetary position holds exactly 53.00 Virupas of strength. Move just a tiny bit over to exactly 180 degrees, and the strength maxes out at 60 Virupas. These ancient texts function exactly like modern visual data dashboards. They assign hard, fractional mathematical values to space-time geometry. They absolutely weren't guessing. They were computing the energetic weight of the cosmos on a human life with the precision of a modern algorithm.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's ancient history, but just look at the modern data we get from the Central Weather Administration. Here we are today, still meticulously logging astronomical phenomena, Uranus-Moon conjunctions, meteor showers, planetary oppositions. That basic human drive to map out space-time geometry, track planetary conjunctions, and log environmental data, it continues completely uninterrupted. The tools have evolved from golden astrolabes to high-tech satellites, sure, but the tracking of this giant cosmic clockwork remains fundamentally exactly the same.
And that brings us to another brilliantly complex space-time matrix, the Chinese Bazi, or Four Pillars of Destiny system. According to the mechanics of this calendar, time isn't just a number on a page, it actually carries an elemental charge, a real physical weight. The sources highlight a massive upcoming shift into the 2026 Bing Wu, or Fire Horse cycle. This is described as a period of pure yang and explosive energy, stepping out from the hidden, incubating energy of the 2025 Wood Snake. It's an entirely different way of coding space-time geometry, framing time as a constantly evolving cycle of 5 core elements.
Let's move to and see how this builds across an actual timeline. The BOTC framework maps out the physical and emotional energies evolving month by month. In January 2026, the data shows a heavy earth and water influence, so cold, damp, and hidden. But by February, as we cross the solar term into spring, there's an explosive transition into wood and fire. By June 2026, the system predicts a double fire phase, extreme heat and peak yang energy. Just like Ptolemy mapped the seasons by heat and moisture, BOTC creates a dynamic network mapping the psychological and environmental heat of the entire year. And, when these elements interact, they create very predictable geometric tensions. For instance, the BOTC texts outline an intense elemental clash in early 2026 between the dominant fire of the year and the metal of the month. In this framework, fire suppresses metal, which the texts neutrally correlate with intense tension in areas represented by metal, things like finance law or institutional structures. What's absolutely fascinating is how this clash of fire and metal shares a conceptual root with Ptolemy's quadrant systems. It's all about how competing physical properties literally collide and reorganize the environment around us.
Okay, so here is where it gets really wild. Modern analysts of these ancient texts are doing something totally unprecedented. They aren't just looking at one system anymore. They are actually unifying these diverse cultural algorithms into a single, comprehensive psychological matrix. They're synthesizing the elemental flow of BOTC, the complex life palaces of the Chinese Ziwei Doshu, the psychological archetypes of Western astrology, and the incredibly precise timing cycles of Vedic astrology. By combining them all, they're attempting to create a high-definition, multi-layered map of human behavior and environmental interaction.
So, the crucial point is, how do you actually use all these together without just creating total chaos? Well, the sources detail a rigorous cross-validation method. Step 1 requires directional weighting, meaning you only have high predictive certainty if all 4 distinct systems point to the exact same outcome independently. Step 2 handles conflicts by prioritizing the system that has the strongest structural resonance for that specific question. And Step 3 uses complementary bridging, like maybe using the deep psychological archetypes of Western astrology to explain the exact timing triggered by a Vedic planetary period.
In this unified matrix, think of each mathematical system as a highly specialized tool, perfectly compensating for the blind spots of the others. Ziwei Doshu is highly specialized for intricate relational details and family dynamics. BOTC maps your core energy fields, your internal elemental engine, basically. Western astrology excels at unpacking deep psychological archetypes and subconscious drives. In Vedic astrology, that's the ultimate clock, pinpointing exact timing and life phases through its unique, mathematically calculated periods. Together, they form this massive, deeply interwoven data set.
All of this leaves us with a pretty profound question to ponder. We've seen how, from Ptolemy's geometry to the complex math of Vedic Virupas, humanity has just relentlessly built these immense data models to decode the space-time we are born into. If our ancestors built these brilliant, overlapping algorithms to map the stars and human behavior with such rigorous mathematical precision, are we truly the authors of our destiny, or are we just the code executing their cosmic design? It's a fascinating paradigm to explore, isn't it? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you to keep questioning the geometry of the world around you.